driver's licenses for illegals, transgender surgeries for our kids, BLM riots in our streets. This was Kamala Harris's first decision as a presidential candidate. Kamala is dangerously liberal. We just can't trust her.
All right, folks, breaking news. As you may have heard by now, Kamala Harris just made her vice presidential pick, and it is a token white guy like everyone expected, but it is not Josh Shapiro. It is actually going to be Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and that is breaking of today. Again, Tim Walz is Kamala Harris's running mate in the 2024 election, and needless to say, it is already kind of backfiring. I am almost a little bit baffled as to why Kamala Harris chose this character to begin with, and I'll tell you all about why in today's video. So folks, if you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. But let's start off by, I guess, explaining or rationalizing the devil's advocate position, right? Why did Kamala Harris not want to choose Josh Shapiro? Because you look at him on the surface, he is the governor of Pennsylvania, which is obviously arguably the most important swing state in this entire election, and he's relatively moderate for a Democrat. He's kind of popular in his state, and so some people are saying, why would you not do that? Well, a couple of reasons, it actually turns out. First of all is the Palestine issue, and we knew this was going to come up. Kamala Harris is really trying to avoid a rebellion from the progressive wing, and if you don't know about Josh Shapiro, he is one of the biggest pro-Israel Zionist Democrats in their party, and so, you know, trying to avoid a scene, big riots at the DNC, whatever it is, and on top of that, he has that whole scandal where he allegedly covered up a murder a couple of years ago in his state. So I understand on that front. Okay, maybe despite the fact that Josh Shapiro has a big upside, it may backfire, it may implode on you if the scandalization of him is successful and the progressive voters who Kamala Harris believes she needs might stay home. But at the same time, the reason I say it's baffling is if you're going to go with that logic, you want a candidate who does not have too much liability attached to his name. She just chose Tim Walz, who is one of the most extreme progressives in the Democrat Party. And so sure, with Walz compared to Shapiro, she's going to avoid the Palestine protest vote and the left-wingers, maybe a little bit more boycotting. But at the same time, Kamala Harris is now failing to moderate. You saw that opening ad from Donald Trump. The attack line against her in the election is what? That she is dangerously liberal. And she had a chance to maybe quell some of that talk if she chose a moderate like Josh Shapiro or Andy Beshear as the VP, but instead here she is choosing one of the most far left people in the entire Democrat Party, and already within hours of that pick being made, Republicans are starting to hammer home Tim Walz's record. And that's the thing about Tim Walz. When it comes to Josh Shapiro, you kind of got to do a little bit of digging to expose him. You know, here's this scandal about him, Palestine, do you know where he stands? Well, with Tim Walz, you don't really need to speculate because his radical record is already transparently out in the open. Of course, being the sitting governor of Minnesota, the first thing that comes to mind is the BLM riots of 2020. Walz obviously stood by as this was happening. He allowed it, he defended it, and it's not just about the fact that, oh, it was happening in his state, but he was trying to stop it. That's overplayed. No, here is Tim Walz in the 2022 gubernatorial debate saying he was proud of Minnesota's response to the George Floyd riots. Yeah, the very George Floyd riots that burned down half of Minneapolis. Here's what he had to say about it.
The murder of George Floyd shocked not just Minnesota, nor the nation. It shocked the world. And the civil unrest that ensued from that was probably some of the greatest that we've seen both in this nation and globally. And that operation involving dozens of local, county, and then the state, involving multiple states in the region, and involving the federal government, had to be assembled, had to be coordinated, and had to make sure that we brought order back. I'll be the first to tell you, that's terrifying for Minnesotans in those days. Nothing like this had been seen before, the level of violence after the murder of George Floyd. I think, again, there'll be stories written, and this will be written about for quite some time. I'm proud of Minnesota's response. I'm proud of Minnesota's first decision at the time.
You're proud of Minnesota's response? You stood by and allowed all of that to happen. Okay, let's not forget, they literally burned down a police precinct in Minneapolis, which means you kind of just allowed the police to retreat and walk away, etc. So let that be said. Not only is Tim Walz the very face of the Minneapolis BLM riots, but he said he's proud of it. He did a great job. Okay, let's see how that plays over with the American people. So already on the front of BLM, on the front of the mass crime that is happening in American cities, Tim Walz, not exactly the kind of vice presidential pick that allows you to run away from that. But his radically progressive record does not stop there, because let's hammer home, obviously, crime, that's going to be a big issue that helps Trump in this election. But on top of that, illegal immigration, the border, this is the other kitchen table issue. We'll take a listen to some of the things that Tim Walz had to say about illegal immigration. Firstly, he said that if Trump builds the border wall, he would invest in a ladder company that allows illegal immigrants to hop over the wall and hop over the border. So this guy, again, encouraging and in support of illegal immigration. You cannot make this up. Take a listen.
What Democrats need to do is acknowledge, and he has ginned up fear, but our border can work better. There's no reason someone seeking asylum, which we will always be a guiding light for, shouldn't have to wait 7 years to have that adjudicated. That's why this bill would have made it 90 days and people either got it or they were removed. And I think seeing a plan that's out there, talking about it with folks, knowing that he's not going to do anything. He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory. That's not how you stop this. You stop this using electronics. You stop it using more border control agents. And you stop it by having a legal system that allows for that tradition of allowing folks to come here, just like my relatives did, to come here, be able to work and establish the American dream. He's not interested in that. He wants to demonize. Look, we produce most of the turkeys that you're going to eat in Thanksgiving. Those are immigrants working hard, establishing themselves here. What's he going to do? Is he going to take them all out?
So there you have, again, Tim Walz saying he's going to invest in a ladder company to allow and encourage illegal immigration. Yeah, I'm sure this is going to go over greatly for Kamala Harris, but it doesn't even stop there, because as governor, he also smiled as he signed a law providing driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. Again, can't make this up. Check it out.
It's done.
A packed room at the St. Paul Armory erupted after the governor's signature made driver's license for all the law of the land.
So again, I just don't really understand Kamala Harris's logic on this VP pick, because I do get the part where you're scared of the Palestine protest vote with Shapiro and all his personal scandal. Fair enough. But you know that Trump is trying to hammer this election on crime and immigration and this attack line on you that you're dangerously liberal. And instead of maybe trying to distance yourself from that, you choose one of the most dangerously liberal people in the Democrat Party. I don't know, but it doesn't even stop there, because here is Tim Walz on camera admitting to being a progressive. So it's not like, oh, you're saying he's a progressive, but he's not. But he even softcore endorses socialism on camera. Like, what are we doing here? Take a listen.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Yes, I'm sure that's going to go over very well with independents. Now, expectedly, you have Democrats out here celebrating the VP pick, and their excuse basically is that, oh, Tim Walz is actually popular. He's popular in Minnesota. People like him, etc. But here's the problem with that logic. First of all, much like any VP pick, he has not been attacked yet. Okay, so the moment that the attacks start to come out, they are going to land, and they're going to land very easily for Tim Walz, because this is not us making stuff up or taking it out of context. He is on camera throughout the years giving us 1 million free campaign campaign ads for Donald Trump supporters. So that's number one. But number two, let's also point out he's from Minnesota. Now, Minnesota did get close in 2016, but it's not something we would consider to be a swing state. Okay, so in comparison to Shapiro, you could make the argument, well, maybe we'll take a gamble and win Pennsylvania because of it. Walz may be from that Midwestern region, but he's not from one of those states. But on top of that, I would point out Minnesota is just a weird state. Like, it's hard to really compare it to other states in this country because it's weird, right? It's Minnesota. It hasn't went Republican since 1972. It is the same place where these rioters burned down their capital city and they got more Democrat in the next election cycle. That's usually a trend you don't see. You certainly did not see that in a place like Kenosha, Wisconsin. But, you know, again, it's Minnesota, right? So I don't know if you can take Tim Walz's popularity and translate that to the national level when he comes from a state that's more of a political anomaly than the rule, right? But, you know, all things considered, what drove this pick? I don't know exactly, but I would venture to guess maybe you have people in the Kamala Harris camp, and I'll say this, listening too much to the internet and not real life, right? Opposite of JD Vance in a way, because I certainly do not deny that the Palestine protest vote from progressives was going to be a real thing. Okay, I've been saying for months it was going to doom Joe Biden potentially in the election, and especially a state like Michigan. And it is true, Kamala Harris's chances in Michigan may have just gone up a little bit because it was not Josh Shapiro. But at the same time, we have to play a measuring contest here because Tim Walz is so ridiculously progressive. It's going to come down to the math of how many young progressive voters are there in America versus Gen X or older independents and moderates in the electorate that are going to be heavily turned off by the past remarks and stances of Tim Walz. If I were to venture to guess, and again, why I say this might be an example of listening too much to the internet, that those independent voters, you know, your kind of suburban moderates, yes, young progressives do exist, but the moderate voters, the independents, are going to be more important for Kamala Harris to win. They're also the demographic that Kamala struggles the most in comparison to the other ones. And you just chose someone who is pure toxic, pure electoral poison for those independent voters. So folks, that said, I don't really know. Let me know your thoughts on the VP pick in the comment section down below, but I'm just going to summarize. It's hard for Kamala Harris to escape the attack line that she is dangerously liberal with this pick. So let me know. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Be sure to follow me on X and all of my social medias, link in the description. And until next time, God bless and peace.